Erin Kelly, CEO and co-founder of Advanced Symbolics Inc, is with us now to tell us what Polly, the AI pollster, has to say about the public's response to Premier Ford's snap election call and what the pressing issues of the campaign are so far. Erin, always great to have you back in our studio. Nice to see you again.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, what are you picking up? What's Polly picking up in terms of the mood of the electorate right now?
I would say the mood is nauseous.
Nauseous? Really?
People are, we've come out of years of inflation, high housing prices, coming out of COVID, and now a trade war with President Trump, and not one election, but possibly two elections on the horizon in a short space of time. People are angry, exhausted. I'm not even sure which one is more ahead, but I think a feeling of there is no leadership and no control. And who's running the ship? We saw over 70,000 people just this week talking about this early election call. That is very big.
Oh, well, let me pick up on that then. You know, inside the Pink Palace, inside Queen's Park, the notion of the early election call has everybody, extremely exercised. Of course, the Premier's very gung-ho on it. The opposition parties think it's completely unnecessary. What's Polly picking up?
People are saying the number one thing they're saying is that this is a distraction. The Premier has a mandate. He's got a majority government. There is no better mandate in Canada. And not only that, they're saying it's a distraction from the tasks at hand, which is, healthcare, and how they're agreeing with the opposition parties. They're also saying that it's going to make him weaker, not stronger, in negotiating with Donald Trump, because Donald Trump likes to suss out weakness. And if you're a politician who said, I don't have a mandate and I have to have and you're in an election, well, this is an opportunity for him to bully you because you're vulnerable, right? And so that's what people are saying. How does this make any sense?
I don't know if Polly can forecast this at this stage, but, the opposition parties are clearly trying to make this early election call a thing. They would like this to be the ballot question. Unnecessary election, punish Doug Ford. Are you picking that up? Are people prepared to punish the Premier as a result of this?
It's early days right now because people are angry. So, but there's a there, right? Like if they can pick this up, and even more importantly, we're seeing now a lot of people are actually, because he's made this election about Donald Trump and not housing and anything else, people are actually now comparing him, we're seeing, to Danielle Smith. You know how he said you don't want Marit Stiles or, Bonnie Crombie negotiating with Trump? Well, that's actually not his competition here. His competition is Danielle Smith. A lot of people are saying, how is he doing compared to Danielle Smith? And we've seen over time that people in Ontario even are liking her approach and wondering if that's going to get better results than we're going to turn off all their power and we're going to take all their bourbon off the shelves, And what's really interesting is that the people who are starting to say, I like Danielle Smith's approach, are more likely to say, and I think Marit Stiles is more like that approach, which is interesting because Marit Stiles is not a conservative.
No.
But Danielle Smith is taking a conciliatory tact here, and people are seeing that that's not the same tact that Doug Ford is taking, or that he's inconsistent in his tact. So it's interesting that the more that they go with Danielle Smith, the more they're moving away from Doug Ford's.
That is interesting.
Right.
Now, when the election was originally supposed to happen under the fixed election date law, June 2026, presumably Polly starts, looking into potential currents, waves in the lead up to that. I don't know 3 months, 6 months ahead of time? You didn't get a heads up this time, right? We're into a call almost a year and a half before you have to have one. So was Polly sort of caught off guard here?
Polly can work very quickly once we get everything up and running. So the way Polly works, just to revise how
Always
she
a good idea.
works.
Remind us,
what matters when you're doing election forecasting, it's not the technology that you use, whether I use phone polling or I stand on street corners, it's who you're asking or listening to. You have to make sure you have that representative view across the province, different ethnicities and age groups and income levels and professions and all of
Geographic locations.
Geographic locations, and you're matching the census data. So that's what we're doing. Now, Polly what Polly is doing in her case is she's looking at these people throughout their history on social media. So she's getting a representative sample and saying, these are the people that I'm going to listen to in this election. And I'm going to listen to how they voted last time, how they voted 10 years ago. I mean, she can go back in time as if it were that time and see, well, why did they change? Do they change? Do they always vote the same? And what are the issues that have really been resonating with them over a long period of time?
So a snap election call shouldn't necessarily put off her ability to predict.
It should not. No, it will not. That's the only thing that will is, as we get closer, how solidified are people's votes as we get closer to election day? Are they still waffling as we go in? Because as you know, she categorizes people as definitely here, definitely there, and then lean. And it's those leaning one way or the other that she has to make a call on. And that's
now, Polly is deeply attentive to internet, social media, those kinds of things. But of course, there are a hell of a lot of people in the province of Ontario who are not on social media and who, so how does Polly figure out what they think?
Well, and that's why you have to sample it properly, because if we just took everything from social media, which is what social media listening does, it takes everything, you will be overrepresented in young people and certain income levels and things like that. So what Polly does is she says, I've already got enough 25 to 35-year-olds in my sample. I need some more people 65 plus. So she balances that. And that's how you do it with any kind of polling. You're never going to speak to everybody in Ontario in the next week or two, right? It's impossible. And it would be prohibitively expensive. So what you have to do is make sure that you're balancing the people that you listen to so that you compensate for the fact that you can't listen to everyone. And these people become it's a representative sample. So these people become representative of their cohort. And what you have to make sure is that sometimes when you can't get enough people to fill out a survey, you do weightings. You say, okay, well, I've only got 3 Indigenous people, so they represent all Indigenous people in Ontario. Hopefully I picked them right. For Polly, because we've got lots and lots of people that we get much bigger sizes, that's kind of an advantage there.
Polly's done pretty well in the past at forecasting certain outcomes. Brexit, Polly picked. The first Trump victory, Polly picked. But, she doesn't always get it right? No. Because she is evolving. You have to put new information in, and she takes account into that. How have you/she adjusted her brain since, let's say, the last Ontario election or the last presidential election, the last big thing?
Well, Polly learns each time. So Polly, and this is true for any AI. AIs learn through positive reinforcement, like a child, right? If you want to teach a child, to be polite or whatever, you say, please walk. You don't say, don't run, right? And it's the same, well, I mean, that's a point of view on parenting. I know everybody has different views. But that's how you raise an AI, if you will. You have to put her through all these elections, and you don't say, well, you did this wrong, you did that. You say, okay, that was your forecast, here's what actually happened. And she teaches herself. So we don't say to her, well, next time do this or do that. We say, thanks, Polly, here's what actually happened. And then
machine learning kicks in.
It's machine learning, so she evolves.
The public's perception of what's going on in Ottawa right now. We keep hearing about a power vacuum because Trudeau's announced he's leaving, but he's still there. They're having a leadership. Anyway, everybody knows the drill. How is that instability in Ottawa affecting what's happening on the provincial election scene?
Well, it's affecting it a lot because people were, I guess, hoping, like when, let's back up a few weeks. We had a power vacuum. We've had a power vacuum for a bit now in Ottawa. Doug Ford was seen as stepping up, and he was getting great kudos for that. He was bringing everyone together, and people were kind of seeing him as like a pseudo prime minister. But if he's now distracted by an election, then what happens?
The vacuum persists.
Yes. And that's why I think a lot of people are saying, well, Danielle Smith is our person now because she's not running, she's not distracted, she's very focused, right?
She had a real 180, though. I know that when she first came out saying, I'm not signing the communique and I'm going to back my sector to the hilt and sorry about the rest of you. I mean, I talked to people who said, what a traitor. I mean, were Polly picking that up in the beginning?
We are. Here's what we're picking up. So yes. We're also seeing some people say, well, maybe the reason is because, well, Trudeau a lot of people think he's very polarizing and that she's affiliated with Pierre Poilievre. So we have all these different conversations happening online where people are saying, well, maybe she's just a traitor, Or maybe she's getting results, and maybe when she says we need to give him a win, this is a David and Goliath battle. You know, she's David. And
David won, as I recall.
Yes.
If I remember the story, David won.
And what she's saying is, you're not going to win by saying, I'm going to turn off all your power. And she's not the only one saying that. Scott Moe's saying that. And the Quebec Premier is saying that.
Legault, yeah.
Legault, he's signing on to Team Canada, but he's also telling the media he's not going to turn anything off. So there's a bit of disagreement there, that this idea that you have to have this belief in order to be part of Team Canada. What happens to the premiers who don't believe that that's the right move? And people are starting to have that conversation. So I think people are more open-minded than black, white, she's a traitor, she's great. I think it's maybe she's got a good point. Maybe, we need a variety of possible responses. But here's something to know about Donald Trump. His motivation is that he actually feels that his country is vulnerable. Do you remember when the pandemic happened and we had no vaccine manufacturing? Right. And I think we still don't, even though all sorts of deals are being signed. Yep. If you can't manufacture your own vaccines, you're vulnerable, as we saw. Well, if all of your manufacturing happens in China and then you're having a war with China, do you think they're going to send you supplies? Probably not. So by saying we're going to cut off your electricity, that just reinforces his view that America needs to be self-sufficient. He's trying to make America more self-sufficient. And that's why he wants the tariffs. It's not so much to punish Canada, it's to force his own people to bring back the manufacturing.
Got 1 minute to go. Let's do one more thing here, and that is, the opposition members are alleging that part of the reason Ford wants this early election is to get out ahead of potential charges related to the Greenbelt that may affect members of his government. Polly, picking any of that chat up?
Yes.
Like
yes.
what? What are you hearing?
So I asked Polly to rank what people are saying are the reasons for this election. Number one is distraction, and then number two is RCMP investigation. And then number three was Trump.
So people are aware of this Greenbelt situation.
They're aware. Now, the people who are talking right now are the people who are the most gung-ho political. It's probably your viewers, right? It's people who are politically astute, because these are the earliest people talking. As the campaign continues and more people join the conversation, we'll see if that changes. But that's in the first week. In the first week, that message is definitely getting through. So it's up to the opposition people now to see if they can keep that going and keep that thread going, or if we get distracted, if you will, with the Trump tariff threats, whatever happens in February.
Understood. Erin, we look forward to future visits during this writ period, so thanks for coming in today, and we'll see you again down the road.
Thanks for having me.